morning again. This is Penny with my Keeping It Real videos, and I just want to talk a little bit about this soft rolled waistband before I get started. I wanted to show you really what prompted me. This is a sport bra I've made, and they just have all the instructions show for just all the 3 layers to be serged together. So you've just got this big fat blob of serge. And I mean, I suppose I could top stitch it, but then I still have a big fat blob of serge seam to deal with. And the same thing with some leggings. The pattern calls for me to just stitch the 2 layers of the waistband, there's the waistband, onto the body of the garment, so I have just this big fat seam sticking up. I could, again, fold it up and top stitch it, but that's 4 layers that I'm top stitching through. My machine will do it, but it just is kind of bulky. So I've made a tutorial with still photos and step-by-step, but I'm also going to talk about the process. We're going to use just sample fabric and pretend we're doing a whole contour waistband onto a pair of leggings. So for the benefits of what we're doing, I have just 2 pieces here. Let's pretend this is the contour waistband. And then I have another piece here that we're going to pretend is the body of the garment. First thing I need to do is to set up the serger. So I will show you how we need the serger set up once you're done seaming. For the purposes of this video, if you're making something, we're going to assume that all the construction is done to the point where the band would get attached to the garment, whether it's a sport bra or a waistband going on some leggings, or maybe the waistband of a skirt. The way we want to have our serger set up for this waistband project is we want to have it on the most narrow seam possible. So what I've done here is I took out my left needle, and so this is just the right needle left in the machine. So it's a single needle, 3-thread serger setup. In addition, we're going to use the elastic assembly foot on your machine if you have one. What I've got here is it's got a slot, and then it's got a little adjuster. Don't ever undo the screw and lose this piece, you'll never find it. But this slot you can adjust for different widths of elastic. The maximum on my foot is 3/8 of an inch. And this little guide, if it were a 1/4 inch or more, we could slide it out. And what this is going to do is it's going to put the elastic right up against the blade here. The blade is not going to be cutting the elastic, but it'll be cutting the fabric, and it'll be feeding through it. I only recently learned how to use this. I'm not awesome at it. I'm sure there's a great YouTube video out there somewhere that shows you how to do it. In addition, I've got a mark on my serger where the 3/8 is. So many of the PDF patterns now have a 3/8 seam allowance. So there's my little guide that I made for myself. Just for grins, this is a Juki 644D. Thing's a freaking workhorse. I love it. I got it from Ron Anderson at A1 Sewing in New York. He's a great guy. I've been working with him for 20 years. And a real quick fun little tip. Dry erase marker on your sewing machine, and you can write down what needle you've been using. So I've got my sample all set up and ready to go. You can see I've got the fabric ready to go. The edge is going to be trimmed by the knife there. The elastic is in the elastic foot, but it's up against the knife. It's not going to get cut by the knife. You'll see how easily it feeds by itself. And just for peace of mind, because I forget things too, this sample piece is labeled facing, because you want the facing side up. This is really important, facing side up. And this is 3/8 inch elastic. This is what you want to use. You can use swim elastic, you can use braided elastic, you can use clear elastic. I'm using this one because it's just really easy to work with, and you can see it really well as I'm doing the sewing. So I'm going to sew this elastic on now, and then we'll go to the next step. So the next step is going to be doing some top stitching of this elastic onto the facing. You can see here that after we serged it, the elastic is on the top side right here. This is the top. This is the facing piece. This is the wrong side. This piece, bottom piece here, is the wrong side of the outside piece. So again, this is why I've got it labeled facing for now, so I don't get messed up on this. And what we're going to do is we're going to open this out flat. So it's nice and flat. And this is the facing on the right side. And we are going to top stitch it with our cover hammer right next to the seam here. We're going to follow the crease of the seam on this side. And if you don't have a cover hammer to do this, you can do this on a zigzag machine. Again, you want to just come right here, right along the edge, next to the fold. This is the facing edge, and you're going to top stitch your elastic because the edge of the elastic's right there. I don't know if you can see that, but you're going to top stitch it right next to this. And I'll show you what that looks like. So this is what we just did. We just did this narrow needle. I didn't mention that you should be set up for narrow cover hem, a narrow 2-needle cover hem on the facing side of the fabric. The outside piece of your waistband is not getting stitched on. We'll do that later. But so you've got this nice cover stitching, and what this does is this enables the waistband to roll around. This is the front now, and this is the inside. And you can see how that stitching holds the elastic nice and neat. What it looks like on the other side is it looks like this. This is going to be hidden, of course, but this is what you end up with. Now, if you don't have a cover hammer to do this top stitching, this one here, it's a sample I made, and I just did the stitching on the elastic with a little tiny zigzag instead of a cover hammer. You can see it there. This is the inside of the waistband where you've got your roll over to the right side, and this is the facing side. And what this would look like on the inside is just like that. You can see the zigzag and the serging, and the function is exactly the same. It's just going to look a little bit different. So the next step here is to get this facing onto the garment and finish it off. The first thing we're going to want to do is I like to secure the waistband. I do a nice little roll, and I just use these clips. I think they're really handy for this, and I just do the roll, and I keep the facing to the inside and roll the outside of the waistband to the outside. Now, something really important here is a lot of patterns will have you trim off the facing like 1/4 of an inch or something like that, and that's to facilitate this roll to the inside. We are not going to trim anything yet. So both your facing and your outside pieces of your waistband should still be the same length. They're going to get off as we start folding and rolling, but don't worry about that right now. What I want you to do is I want you to get your waistband all ready with clipping, and then I'll show you what we do next. So I've got this all clipped. You can see the facing edge hanging out from the bottom. And the next thing is when we attach this to the waistband, we need these layers to be as secure as possible. So what I'm going to do is I've got it nice and flat. So I'm going to run a line of basting and use my sewing machine about an inch and a half up from the bottom of the outside, the front side of the waistband, where we're going to sew our garment to. But we need to run a line of basting there to hold these layers really secure. So what I just did here is I basted the 2 layers, the front and back of the waistband together. And this is the front side now, the shorter piece, and the longer piece is the facing. We're going to take the right side of our garment and we're going to stitch it to the right side of the waistband, just a single layer here of the front piece. We're not going to stitch both pieces. And this is where it gets a little fiddly when you put it all together, so it's really important to make sure you're just stitching these 2 layers. But I'm going to stitch together and then I'll show you what we do next.